You've probably seen this all over TikTok, the IKEA and Gustaf Westman collection, with those pastel plates, the bubble pink lamp, and that blue meatball tray. Everyone's posting it, talking about it, and trying to get their hands on it. It's colorful, it's bold, and it's fun, but it also feels a bit like something out of a kid's room. So my question is this collection playful in a good way, or is it just trying too hard to be clever? Well, before we get to that, let's look at who Gustaf Westman actually is and how his style became one of the most recognizable looks on the internet right now. So Gustaf Westman is a Swedish designer who actually started out as an architect. He studied in Gothenburg, Sweden, worked in an architecture office for about a year, and then shifted into designing furniture full-time. And around 2020, he launched his own studio, and one of his first pieces, the curvy mirror, instantly took off online. It had this thick, wavy frame in candy sort of colors, kind of a cartoon version of a design classic. And it showed up in influencer apartments, studios, and even magazine shoots, and suddenly everyone wanted one. And then from there, Westman built a full line of rounded, chunky pieces. So tables, chairs, plates, cups, and lamps, all with the same playful, soft-edged look. And he always leaned into pastel blues, bubblegum pinks, glossy finishes, and shapes that look inflated instead of sharp. And so it's the kind of design that stood out in photos, but also made a space feel less serious. And so that bold, cheerful look is what put his name on the map, and eventually what caught IKEA's attention. And so last September, IKEA released the collaboration with Gustaf Westman as part of its winter lineup. And it was folded into the Vinterfint and Strala series, the same seasonal range where IKEA usually drops its holiday collections. But this one was positioned differently. Instead of Christmas trees and Christmas ornaments, it focused on the idea of everyday celebration. And the concept was that you don't need a special occasion to make your space feel fun. And so the collection itself had 12 pieces, mostly tableware and lighting, and every item was priced under $50. It was meant to be playful, affordable, and unmistakably Westman. And probably the most talked about piece is the meatball tray, a pastel blue stoneware platter that's shaped with a long curved channel that perfectly fits 11 IKEA meatballs. I know it sounds kind of absurd, but it actually became the symbol of the entire launch. It's weird, a little bit funny, and just perfectly Swedish. Then there's also a set of square-rimmed plates where each plate has a circular center but square edges. And when you set multiple of these plates together, the edges line up like tiles, creating this geometric pattern that runs across the table. And they come in Westman's usual color mix of pink, blues, and greens, and so when you set the table, it looks like a grid of candy-colored shapes. And then there's the cup and saucer set, which still carries Westman's rounded look, but in a bit of a subtler way. So the saucer is unusually wide, so big enough to hold cookies or snacks beside your drink, while the cup itself stays compact and simple. And so this piece actually echoes one of his original studio designs that sold for hundreds of dollars, but IKEA made it available for just 10. And then the spiral vase might be the most interesting object, at least from a technical standpoint. It's made of a clear glass tube held inside a coiled metal spring, and it literally bounces if you tap the table. It looks like something out of a cartoon, but it still manages to function as a proper vase. But it's not just tableware, because lighting is a big part of the collection as well. There's the pink donut lamp, which has two circular ceramic rings intersecting with an LED light inside of them, and it's rechargeable and portable, and so it doubles as a small sculpture and a lamp at the same time. Then there's the red candelabra light, which is shaped like a row of glowing orbs on a wavy base, almost like a modern electric version of a Swedish Advent candle holder. And altogether, IKEA described the collection as a delicious slice of fun, and Westman said he wanted it to feel like a weird little family of objects that could turn any dinner into a mini celebration. And when the collection launched, videos of people lining up for it, styling it, and even making memes about their meatball tray flooded TikTok and interior design pages. It got tons of attention, it completely sold out, and it brought Westman's look to people who couldn't afford his studio pieces beforehand. But once all the hype settled, the reactions became more divided. Some fans called it one of IKEA's most fun collections in years, while others said it looked like toy tableware or like something designed more for social media than for an actual home. But in my view, there is a difference between playful and childish, and this is where the IKEA and Gustaf Westman collection starts to blur that line. There's no doubt that it's cheerful, but not in a way that feels intentional. The pieces are fun to look at for a second, but the longer you sit with them, the more they start to feel like they were designed to be photographed, not lived with. And so the problem isn't the concept of play itself, it's how easily it tips into novelty when everything is exaggerated at once. Gustaf Westman originally built his reputation on design that had control. His pieces were bold but never chaotic. They had thick edges, glossy finishes, and heavy materials that gave his work real presence. There was definitely humor, but it was balanced with proportion, and that's what made his mirrors and tables so appealing. They looked lighthearted, but they were crafted with real discipline. And so when you saw one of his mirrors or coffee tables out in the wild, it didn't just read as fun, it read as confident, like it knew exactly how to walk the line between irony and elegance. And that tension was what made it cool. But in my view, this IKEA collaboration loses sight of that tension. The shapes are still there, but the attitude isn't. Everything feels thinner, lighter, and safer, like a simplified sketch of what Westman's style used to be. The edges are softened, the weight is gone, and what once felt bold now just feels cute. It's as if all the depth that made Gustaf Westman's studio work feel collectible got flattened into something that's easy to mass produce. And so the goal seems to have shifted from making you think to making you smile. And once you smiled, there's nothing really left to notice. And then there's the color story. Westman's original use of pastel tones worked because it played against the seriousness of his forms, and that contrast is what made it interesting. But in this collection, the colors take over. The pinks, blues, and mint greens are charming in isolation, but when they're all side by side, the setup starts to feel like a children's party rather than a design statement. Plus, there's no grounding element. There's no wood, no metal, and no neutral surface to break up all that brightness. And it's not just that bright colors can't look grown up, they just need contrast to feel deliberate. And without that, the whole setup ends up looking like a prop room for a cartoon. And so in my opinion, that's the real problem with this collection. It mistakes playfulness for an excuse to grab attention. It's not bad design. The pieces still have plenty of charm and they'll photograph beautifully in the right setting, but it feels like something made for the feed, not for your home. The whimsy is loud, the craftsmanship is gone, and the irony that made Westman's originals so distinctive has been replaced with something easier to digest. It's design that wants to be liked instantly, not lived with slowly. And that's what makes it feel childish, not because of the colors or the shapes, but because it doesn't trust subtlety to be enough. But let me be clear, playfulness itself is not the problem. It's actually one of the hardest things to pull off, because when playfulness works, it makes a space feel alive and full of character. But when it doesn't, it just feels noisy. The trick is knowing how to balance that energy so it feels intentional, not accidental. And so the best kind of playful design doesn't try to entertain you, it invites you in. And it feels effortless because there's rhythm behind it, a mix of bold and calm moments that make the space feel alive without bleeding into the realm of the chaotic. You can still have color, curves, and even a touch of humor, but they need direction, because when everything is loud, nothing stands out. Color doesn't have to shout to feel fun. The trick is to use it with balance. Muted or earthy tones like soft greens, mustard, and clay, they still bring warmth without all the chaos. And if you still want color, try using deeper or dustier shades, like the mix of muted blue, clay orange, and olive green. It still feels alive, but the softer saturation keeps it from becoming overstimulating. Or if you still want something even more playful, go for hand-painted pieces where the pattern itself carries the energy. When the shapes are bold but the base is calm, the color feels intentional instead of loud. And if you really want something bold, like red or green, make sure the other pieces around it are calm. So think white, beige, or pale lilac. That's how you make color feel confident instead of noisy. And the same idea applies to shape, because playful setups work best when there's contrast. Not everything has to look round or wavy. Mixing different forms keep things much more interesting. A curvy glass candle holder beside a tall, straight metal one, or a triangle-shaped ceramic piece feels balanced instead of busy. And plates don't all have to be perfect circles either. Irregular shapes or uneven curves make a table feel more personal and layered. And those small imperfections bring movement. They make the setup look collected, not manufactured. And even mugs can tell a story when they're not all matching. When each piece has its own shape or texture, it looks like something you've built up over time rather than something you just bought as a set. And that's what gives a table personality. It feels lived in, not staged. And speaking of texture, that's what separates something that looks playful from something that looks plastic. Because when you add layers of material, the setup instantly feels richer. A glossy patterned plate becomes calmer when you pair it with a woven placemat or a linen napkin. And that mix of smooth and rough keeps things grounded. And that material contrast also adds plenty of depth. Shiny gold beside ceramic or glass instantly feels more refined. It's not about the cost, it's just about how the finishes complement each other. And even within one small scene, Texture brings a sense of balance. Glass beside matte candles, soft wax against polished surfaces, that mix gives the table quiet rhythm and keeps it from feeling overly chaotic. But to be clear, you don't have to tone everything down to make it feel elevated. You just need to guide the eye. Because when every surface and object is competing for your attention, the space stops feeling designed and starts feeling cluttered. It might look great in a photo, but in person, it's just overwhelming. And so in my view, that's what this collection missed. It's got color, shape, and a sense of humor, but there's no balance. Everything's trying too hard to stand out, so nothing actually does. Because true playfulness comes from control, when the design knows when to stop. And so with all that said, if you're planning to pick something up from the Gustaf Westman collection, or anything else from IKEA, there's something you need to know first. Because you can actually save over 6% on everything you buy at IKEA if you shop the right way. This is one of those quiet little tricks that 99% of people don't know about, but it's so easy to pull off once you know how it's done. And so I broke down the exact process for saving over 6% on all your IKEA purchases in this video up here. I know you're gonna like that one, so I'll see you there.